Hello. Today, Money and Markets comes to you all the way from Clark University in Muyanga. And the reason why we're here is simple. IT. One would tell you that one of the low-hanging fruits that this country has is the human resource. We can talk about the quality of this human resource. But truth is, the country has many young people today that are innovating in the IT industry. The challenge for many is how do you commercialize these innovations? And that's the reason why we're here. We came here to look for answers on how IT innovations, applications if you like, can be monetized. But that's a topic for later. Welcome to Money and Markets. I am Charles, your host. First off, IT innovations today drive economic growth in most progressive countries. I mean, talk of South Korea, talk of Japan, talk of the United States of America. Now, how do you turn your IT innovations into monetary value and therefore have them feed into the transformation of your economy? That's the focus of this segment. Jamie, it's good to have you on the show, Money and Markets.
Thank you.
Now, for starters, I know Uganda has so many IT developers, and the biggest challenge a number of these are facing is how to commercialize what they've come up with, the creations. But before we go there, how would you rate the performance of Uganda, IT development-wise?
I think there's a lot of potential, but I think it's early days. I think there's an enthusiasm, there's a willingness, and there are some organizations doing work in this area. Our partner, Laboramus, IT company, which has a Norwegian origins, is doing a lot of work in fintech, for example, which is creating a lot of demand. And they're getting people who can do the job. Andela is another organization who we're planning to partner with, who are doing a lot of work to develop skills, but it's still quite early days. The big constraint at the moment is getting adequate skills to be able to meet these opportunities, which are definitely there.
Commercializing these innovations, these creations, the IT innovations, is a challenge for many.
Yes, they will come up with great ideas, often very innovative, but it has to be then positioned from the perspective of a customer. And so quite often you can get an idea which sounds good on paper, but if the customer, and even the customer might be excited by it, but if they are not able to actually generate value from the idea, then there's be a problem. So an example, for example, one of our projects, recent projects on one of the courses was looking at a time monitoring system, which sounded like very interesting. Quite a lot of software was done to develop this time monitoring system to enable people to clock on an app when they're in work and when they're not in work, and then to be able to report on that. The challenge was to convince the business that actually what they would save by operating the system was worth the cost of implementing the system. And that's where it struggled.
So what is being done, or what has been your contribution, or what can be done to actually bridge these gaps?
Yeah, I think it ties into the vision that we have for the university, in particular for this School of Business and Applied Technology, which is what appears to be needed is a much more practical approach to education. So we focus on what we would call skills development, which is making sure not that people just get knowledge, but also that they try things out, they learn from what they try, they're developing working on real projects. They get those fundamental skills more than just qualifications. On top of that, we place a strong emphasis on character. In the university, we call ourselves a values-based university for that reason, because there are certain disciplines you need in business and work ethic that if it's not there, you will never be able to deliver. If you're not able to deliver on what you say you're going to do, people will lose faith in you. So this whole aspect of trust needs to be generated in working on these kind of projects. Yeah.
Where do you think Uganda can draw lessons as a country in this area?
Interesting question. I'm thinking that the country that comes to mind immediately is Korea. Korea in the 60s was a developing country. You would not call it a developing country today. For me, the biggest single thing that made the difference in Korea is what I was talking about, is around character. is creating products which delivered high quality on time. And now you have the leading iPhone, mobile smartphone manufacturer in the world now. Samsung is a Korean company. But what, 50 years ago, it was a developing country. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jamie.
Thank you. Cheers, Charles.
Thank you. Looking at where the value of the shilling is compared to many major international currencies and where the inflation rates are, of course, there are many questions of what lies ahead in 2019 for this economy. Now, today, we look at what economists are telling us are the prospects for this country from the monetary policy perspective. The move by the central bank to maintain its benchmark rate for February 2019 at 10% is believed by observers to be a tough balancing act between controlling inflation and at the same time support private sector growth, which has of late posted dismal performance.
Although private sector growth has been on recovery path since January 2018, it remains below its historical trend, and its contribution to economic growth could be weighed down by the relatively weak performance of foreign currency dominated loans.
The central bank rate, CBR, is one of the tools that the BOU uses to control money in circulation, as it is always picked as a signal by lenders to determine whether to increase or lower lending rates. In this case, the bank seems to have taken a middle ground by not increasing or reducing the rate, and it's easy to see why.
Although the inflation outlook over the 12-month horizon has improved compared to December 2018 forecast round, risks to the inflation outlook remain elevated. The escalating global trade frictions and lower than anticipated global growth may not only subdue external demand, thereby weakening Uganda's external position, but could also lead to volatility in the domestic foreign exchange market.
Away from the threats, the bank, however, maintains that the economy remains progressive or robust at the macro level, even when you may not feel this at individual level.
URA, tax collections on domestic side of surplus of around 142 in the first half. We are talking about private sector credit. Remember that some time back, I think at the beginning of 2018, private sector credit was growing in the range of 5.8%. Now we're talking about above 10. Remember that in 2016-18, we're talking about growth of 2.9% growth. So from growing from 2.9% to 5 and then to 6, you see that actually it is a positive trajectory.
A portion of this optimism is believed to be driven by the changing agricultural fortunes and, relatedly, the country's strengthened regional trade position.
Agriculture has actually been performing very well in terms of access to credit. We now have an agricultural credit facility where there is a risk sharing between the banks and the government. We are also seeing more commercialization of agriculture, which is helping in access to credit or in the assessment of credit.
Looking at 2019 from a monetary policy stance, one sees a mixed bag of both growth catalysts picking from the country's strengthened regional trade position and agriculture, but as well sure threats from far afield in the global marketplace. Well, that story winds up the first segment of this week's edition of Money and Markets. We'll now take a very short commercial break.